The blue light of distant stars reflected off Admiral Nancy Webb's tired face as she stared at the holographic display. 23 years of war had carved deep lines around her eyes. Her silver uniform hung loosely on her frame. She had forgotten to eat again. "Another system lost," she whispered, watching the red markers spread across the map. The Zenith Armada had taken 3 more planets in the Cygnus sector. The command center of the Coalition flagship Eternal Dawn was quiet, except for the soft beeping of computers and the occasional whisper of crew members. No one wanted to speak loudly. No one had good news to share. "Admiral," said a voice behind her. "You need to see this." Commander Frank Martinez stood in the doorway. He was holding a data pad tightly in his hand. His normally neat uniform was wrinkled, and his eyes showed he hadn't slept in days. "Unless it's a miracle, Commander, it can wait," said Admiral Webb. "It might be, ma'am." Martinez walked forward and handed her the data pad. "Our scout ships found something at the edge of the Orion Arm, a solar system we've never contacted. Before." Webb looked down at the information. "A yellow star, 8 planets, one with clear signs of civilization. And we find new species all the time. Most want nothing to do with our war." "This one is different," said Martinez. He tapped the screen, bringing up new images. "They call themselves humans, and our scans show technology we've never seen before. Weapons that don't match anything in our database." Webb narrowed her eyes. "The Zenith have better weapons than anyone. How could an unknown species have something new? Not better weapons, ma'am. Different weapons. They think differently. Their battle strategies don't follow normal patterns." For the first time in months, Webb felt a small spark of hope, but she quickly pushed it down. Hope was dangerous. It made you take risks, and risks got people killed. "Bring this to the Coalition Council," she said, handing back the datapad. "Let them decide." "I already did." Martinez looked down. "They said no. They don't want to drag another species into this war. They say it would be cruel." Webb laughed, a harsh sound with no joy in it. "Cruel? The Zenith will find them eventually. Everyone gets dragged into this war in the end." She walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Zenith forces were moving, destroying everything in their path. The Coalition fleet grew smaller every day, their allies fewer, their hope dying. "How far is this Earth?" she asked. 3 days at maximum speed." Webb turned around, her mind made up. "Prepare my ship. I'm going myself." "Admiral." Martinez looked shocked. "The Council ordered—" "I know what they ordered. But we're losing this war, Frank. Thousands of worlds burned. Billions dead." She pointed at the map where red zenith markers were spreading like a disease. "In 6 months, maybe less, there won't be a coalition left to give orders. Sometimes you have to break the rules to save lives." Martinez stood straight. "Yes, Admiral. I'll prepare your ship." "No," said Webb. "I need you here. Find our best diplomat. Someone who can explain our situation without scaring these humans away. I want them as allies, not frightened animals." 3 hours later, Webb stood in the launch bay watching as Calatir prepared to board the small, fast ship that would take her to Earth. Calatir was the Coalition's most experienced diplomat, a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large, thoughtful eyes. "Remember," said Webb, "be honest about the war, but don't overwhelm them. We need their help, not their panic." Calatir nodded, her movements smooth and graceful. "I understand, Admiral. I will present our case with clarity and respect." "This goes against the Council's wishes," Webb warned. "If it goes badly, I'll take the blame." "And if it goes well?" asked Calatir. Webb's lips formed a thin smile. "Then maybe we all live to see the end of this war." As the ship departed, Webb returned to the command center. The crew watched her with curious eyes. Rumors spread fast on a starship. Everyone knew something important was happening. "Set course for the Lyricus system," Webb ordered, "and prepare for battle. The Zenith will be waiting for us." As the Eternal Dawn moved through space, Webb went to her private quarters. She opened a secure channel to Coalition Command. knowing they would be angry about her decision. The face of Council Leader, Dren, appeared on her screen, his reptilian features set in a frown. "Admiral Webb, I hear you've sent an envoy to the human world against direct orders." "I have," she admitted. "We're out of options, Dren. The Zenith advance gets faster every day. Those humans know nothing of our war. They've never left their solar system." "Which means they think differently than us," said Webb. "Maybe that's exactly what we need right now. Someone who doesn't follow our rules of war. Someone the Zenith can't predict." Dren's scales darkened with anger. "And what if they refuse? Or worse, what if they join the Zenith? Then we're no worse off than we are now," said Webb. "But if they join us, if they bring new ideas to this fight..." She let the thought hang in the air. Dren was quiet for a long moment. "You're risking everything on a species we know nothing about." "No," said Webb. "I'm risking everything on hope. It's the only thing we haven't tried yet." After the call ended, Webb looked at the small model of the Eternal Dawn on her desk and had been a gift when she first took command 15 years ago. The ship had been new then, its hull unmarked by battle. Now, like everything in the Coalition, it carried the scars of a long, brutal war. 3 days later, Calatir's ship reached Earth. Webb watched from the Eternal Dawn as the diplomat made first contact with the human leaders. She couldn't hear what was said, but she could see the humans' faces on the monitor. Shock, disbelief, then grave understanding as they learned about the war that had been raging just beyond their knowledge. "Will they help us?" Martinez asked, standing beside her. Webb watched as one of the humans, a tall man with a determined expression, stepped forward to speak to Calatir. "I don't know," she admitted, "but for the first time in years, I think we have a chance." Across the galaxy, the Zenith Armada continued its advance, unaware that in just a few days, everything would change. Jack Stewart ran his hand through his short gray hair as he stared at the alien standing before him. The creature called Calatir stood nearly 7 feet tall, with skin the color of a clear summer sky. Her 4-fingered hands moved gracefully as she spoke. The room, deep inside the Pentagon, was filled with Earth's top military and government leaders. No one had spoken for several minutes. "Let me be sure I understand," Jack said finally. "Your people, this coalition, have been fighting a war against these Zenith aliens for over 20 years, and now you want our help?" Calatir nodded, the movement strangely human. 23 of your Earth years, the Zenith Armada has destroyed thousands of worlds, billions of lives lost. Jack looked around the room. President Laura Wilson sat with her hands folded tightly together. Next to her, the Secretary of Defense, William Grant, was taking notes. In the corner, Major Patricia Daniels, head of Special Operations, watched the alien with narrow eyes. "You said you've been watching us," Patricia said suddenly. "Why? What makes Earth special?" Calatir turned to face her. "Your technology is not as advanced as ours, but your ways of fighting, your strategies, they are unlike anything in the galaxy." "You mean we're unpredictable," said General Allen Murphy, a tall man with a weathered face who had fought in conflicts across the globe. "Yes," said Calatir. "Both the Coalition and the Zenith follow certain rules of war, patterns developed over thousands of years. But your history..." She gestured to a display showing Earth's many battlefields through time. "You create new ways to fight with each generation." The room was quiet again as everyone processed this information. The idea that aliens existed was shocking enough. That they had been fighting a massive war just beyond Earth's reach was almost too much to believe. "I need to speak with my advisors," said President Wilson, standing up. "We'll continue this discussion in 2 hours." As Calatir was led from the room, the human leaders gathered in a smaller chamber nearby. "This has to be some kind of trick," said Secretary Grant. "Aliens asking for our help? It's too strange to be true." "I don't think it's a trick," said Dr. Olivia Reyes, the head of the Global Defense Research Division. She was a small woman with intense brown eyes that missed nothing. "The technology they showed us, and we couldn't fake that. And their ship in orbit is unlike anything we've ever built." Say it is real, President Wilson said. Should we get involved? This isn't our war. General Murphy tapped his finger on the top table. Not yet, but from what this Calatier says, the Zenith will find us eventually. Better to fight them with allies than alone. If we can even help, said Patricia Daniels. Our weapons are probably toys compared to theirs. Dr. Reyes had been quiet, studying the data Calatier had shared about the Zenith forces. I'm not so sure about that, she said slowly. Look at this. She pulled up images of the Zenith ships and their battle formations. Their movements are almost mathematical, too perfect. And that's a problem? Asked Jack Stewart. It could be, Olivia said. Perfect patterns are predictable, and in war, being predictable gets you killed. For the next hour, a small team of military strategists, led by Dr. Reyes, analyzed the Zenith battle plans. They discovered something the coalition had missed. The Zenith's supposedly impenetrable defense grid operated on a mathematical sequence that made it vulnerable to asymmetric warfare tactics. When Calatier returned, the humans had made their decision. We will help you, said President Wilson. But we need to know more about these Zenith. Everything you can tell us. Relief showed on Calatier's alien face. Thank you. Admiral Webb will be grateful. Over the next few days, Earth prepared for war, not with overwhelming numbers or superior technology, but with something the galaxy hadn't seen before: unpredictability. Jack Stewart stood in the command center watching as Dr. Reyes worked with her team. They had been given access to Coalition technology and were adapting Earth weapons to work in space. It's fascinating, Olivia told him, looking up from her work. Their science is advanced, but their thinking is rigid. They haven't tried anything new in centuries. And the Zenith? Even worse. They follow the same tactics in every battle, effective, but once you see the pattern, you can break it. Jack finished. On the third day, Admiral Webb arrived on Earth. She was shorter than Calatier, with dark gray skin and white hair pulled back tightly. She carried herself like someone who had been fighting too long. Director Stewart, she said, gripping his hand firmly, your people work quickly. We don't have much time from what Calatier tells us. Webb nodded. The Zenith fleet is moving toward the Proxima Centauri system. If they take it, they'll control the main route to Earth. Jack led the Admiral to a large room where General Murphy was explaining Earth's military history to a group of Coalition officers. The aliens looked shocked as Murphy described guerrilla tactics, surprise attacks, and decoy operations. You intentionally appear weak to draw in your enemy? One Coalition officer asked, sounding confused. Sometimes, Murphy said. The best victory is the one where your enemy doesn't know they're walking into a trap until it's too late. In another part of the building, Patricia Daniels worked with a team of Coalition engineers, showing them how to modify their weapon systems. You don't need to destroy their ships, she explained. Just disrupt their communications. Confusion can be more effective than destruction. Admiral Webb watched all this with growing hope. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe they might win. That evening, Webb and Jack Stewart stood on the roof of the Pentagon, looking up at the stars. Why us? Jack asked. Out of all the worlds, you could have asked for help. Webb was quiet for a moment. The Coalition has fought the same way for generations. So have the Zenith. We're locked in a pattern neither side can break. She looked at him. But humans, you adapt. You change. You find new ways when the old ones fail. We're not as advanced as you. That might be your greatest strength, said Webb. You don't know what's impossible, so you try anyway. Jack looked up at the stars again, thinking about the war waiting for them. 5 Coalition ships are ready to take our soldiers and scientists. When do we leave? Tomorrow, said Webb. The Zenith won't expect us to bring humans to the fight. That surprise might be enough to change the tide. Across the planet, the best minds Earth had to offer prepared for a war unlike any humanity had ever faced. Not for Earth, not yet, but for allies they had just met. For a galaxy they were only beginning to understand. And somewhere in the darkness, between stars, the Zenith Armada continued its advance, unaware that everything was about to change. The coalition headquarters buzzed with activity as human military advisors worked alongside alien counterparts. The massive space station orbited a distant star, far from both Earth and the front lines of the war. Its curved walls glowed with soft light, and hundreds of different species moved through its corridors. Lieutenant Stephanie Morris stood in the main war room, surrounded by coalition officers. The young woman with dark skin and sharp eyes pointed to a holographic display showing ancient Roman battle formations. The testudo, she explained. The soldiers would overlap their shields to create a protective shell. From the outside, it looked like a turtle. The aliens watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as she showed them how the formation would advance, protecting the soldiers from arrows and other attacks. "But what about the ones on the edges?" asked a coalition officer. "They were more exposed." "Yes," said Stephanie. "Some would die." That was accepted. The aliens exchanged uncomfortable glances. This casual acceptance of losses was disturbing to them. Coalition war doctrine focused on minimizing casualties at all costs, which had often meant giving up strategic positions. In another section of the station, engineer Doug Harrison worked with his team to adapt human weapons for space combat. The tall man with calloused hands carefully examined a nuclear warhead now fitted with coalition technology. "Your weapons are primitive," said his alien supervisor, "but the Zenith won't expect them. They've studied coalition weapons for decades." "Sometimes, old and simple is better than new and complex," Doug replied, "especially when your enemy isn't prepared for it." Meanwhile, computer specialist Kevin Young developed algorithms to exploit patterns in Zenith communications. He had been working for 3 days straight, his eyes red from lack of sleep, but excitement kept him going. "Look at this," he said to a group of coalition techs. "Their encryption is advanced, but it follows strict rules. Rules can be broken." Admiral Webb watched all this from her command center. The human officers moved among her crew with growing confidence, pointing out flaws in coalition tactics that had gone unnoticed for years. "You bunch your ships too closely," said Commander Peter Garcia, a stocky man with a quiet voice but commanding presence. He gestured to the fleet formation displayed before them. "You're optimizing for shield overlap but creating perfect targets for area effects." A coalition general named Zareth objected. "Our simulations show this is optimal." Garcia smiled. "Human history proves that optimal on paper isn't always optimal in war." Webb watched as the coalition officers reluctantly adjusted their formations, based on Garcia's suggestions. The humans had been with them for only 5 days, but already they were changing strategies that had been used for centuries. In her private quarters that evening, Webb met with Jack Stewart. The Earth leader looked tired but determined. "Your people are making impressive progress," Webb said, offering him a drink in a crystal glass. The liquid inside glowed with a soft blue light. Jack took the glass carefully. "They're motivated, seeing your records of the Zenith attacks. No one wants that to happen to Earth. The plan your team has developed is unusual," Webb said. "Some of my officers are concerned. Because it might not work? Because it breaks every rule of engagement we've established over centuries of warfare." Webb set down her glass. "The coalition fights with honor, with clear rules. Your plan, it feels like cheating." Jack laughed. "That's exactly why it will work. The Zenith expect you to follow the rules. They've built their strategy around it, and when we break those rules, they won't know how to respond." Jack leaned forward. "In human history, the side that adapted faster almost always won, regardless of numbers or technology." Webb nodded slowly. "That's what I'm counting on." The next morning, Webb called a meeting of all senior officers, both coalition and human. The war room was packed as she outlined the final plan. "Operation Trojan Horse," she announced, using the name the humans had suggested. Based on an ancient Earth strategy, the plan they had developed was audacious, even reckless by coalition standards. It called for deceit, misdirection, and an acceptance of risk that made many coalition officers uncomfortable. "This goes against all our training," said General Zareth. "Using fake distress signals to lure enemy ships? Disguising our weapon signatures? These are not honorable tactics. Honor won't save the billions in the path of the Zenith fleet, Webb replied firmly. Results will. Dr. Olivia Reyes stepped forward. She had spent days studying the Zenith battle patterns and had discovered critical weaknesses. The Zenith rely on predictive algorithms, she explained. They expect certain responses to their actions. When we do the unexpected, their entire system falls apart. She displayed a simulation showing how the Zenith ships would react to the Coalition's new tactics. Instead of the orderly response they usually showed, the Zenith formation collapsed into chaos. They've never faced an enemy who fights like humans, Olivia said. They won't know how to adapt quickly enough. As the meeting ended, Webb addressed the assembled officers one last time. We launch in 6 hours. The Zenith fleet is approaching Proxima Centauri. If they take that system, they gain a direct path to dozens of inhabited worlds, including Earth. She looked at the human officers standing among her crew. For 23 years, we've fought this war by the rules. Tomorrow, we throw away the rulebook. As the officers filed out, Webb noticed Jack Stewart studying a display of the Zenith flagship. It was massive, nearly twice the size of the largest Coalition vessel. Worried? She asked. Cautiously optimistic, he replied. The plan is solid, but war is always unpredictable. Except when it isn't, said Webb. That's what I've learned from your people. The Zenith are too predictable, and we're about to use that against them. On the other side of the station, Lieutenant Morris led a final briefing for the human soldiers who would join the fight. Unlike the Coalition forces, these men and women came from different countries, different military branches, with different training and experiences. That diversity of thought was exactly what Webb was counting on. The Zenith have never faced humans before, Stephanie told her team. They don't know our history, our tactics, or how quickly we can adapt. That's our advantage. As the Coalition fleet prepared for departure, human engineers made final adjustments to their modified weapons. Coalition techs installed Kevin Young's algorithms into their communication systems. And in a small lab, Dr. Reyes put the finishing touches on what she called the backup plan, a last resort if everything else failed. 6 hours later, the combined fleet departed for Proxima Centauri. 7 human ships among hundreds of Coalition vessels, a small contribution that was about to change the course of a galactic war. Webb stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching as her fleet entered faster than light travel. Beside her, Jack Stewart and Commander Garcia represented Earth's contribution to the war effort. Do you think it will work? Garcia asked quietly. Webb looked at the star field stretching before them. 23 years of war have taught me not to hope too much, but for the first time I think we have a chance. As the fleet raced toward battle, final preparations were made for what would soon be known across the galaxy as the 5-hour war. Fleet Commander Linda Hayes stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiance. Her dark uniform fit snugly against her tall frame, and her short blonde hair was neatly combed. All around her, human and Coalition crew members worked at their stations. The ship hummed with energy as it flew alongside the massive Coalition armada. Through the main viewport, Linda could see hundreds of Coalition ships arranged in the new formation that Commander Garcia had suggested. The human contribution was small, just 7 ships among hundreds, but they carried the core of the battle plan. All ships in position, reported Communications Officer Greg Williams, a young man with steady hands and a calm voice. Linda took a deep breath. The Zenith fleet waited for them near Proxima Centauri. For 23 years, the Coalition had fought and lost against these enemies. Today would be different. Launch Operation Trojan Horse, she commanded. The first hour began. The 7 human ships broke formation, moving to pre-assigned positions throughout the Coalition fleet. On board the Defiance, Kevin Young activated his special communications program. The human ships began broadcasting signals that matched Zenith communications patterns. They're responding, Kevin said, watching his screen carefully. Their communication network is showing confusion. In the Coalition command ship, Admiral Webb watched as the Zenith fleet began to shift position. Their perfect formation wavered as conflicting orders spread through their ranks. "It's working," she said to Jack Stewart, who stood beside her. "Your people's plan is working." The coalition fleet appeared to retreat in disarray just as planned. The Zenith ships, sensing weakness, began to advance. "They took the bait," Jack said. "Now for Phase 2. The second hour began. As the Zenith forces moved forward, they entered a region of space that seemed empty. But human engineers had placed special mines there, hidden from Zenith sensors. The mines were arranged in what appeared to be a random pattern, but Dr. Reyes had calculated exactly how the Zenith ships would try to avoid them. The first explosion lit up space like a new star being born. Then another and another. The Zenith ships moved exactly as predicted, trying to escape the minefield but actually following the path that Olivia had mapped out. "They're moving into position," reported Lieutenant Stephanie Morris from her station on the Coalition flagship. "Just like Dr. Reyes said they would." Admiral Webb nodded. "Signal all ships. Prepare for Phase 3. The third hour began. Coalition. Ships suddenly changed formation, executing maneuvers that their own officers had called irrational during planning. Ships moved in ways that broke all rules of fleet tactics, creating patterns that seemed chaotic, but were carefully designed by the human advisors. On the Zenith command ship, their leaders watched in confusion. Their predictive algorithms, which had served them perfectly for decades, suddenly failed. They could not understand the coalition movements, could not predict where ships would go next. "Their formation makes no sense," said the Zenith commander to his officers. "What are they doing?" But the humans knew exactly what they were doing. The seemingly random movements had been designed to confuse and mislead, to make the Zenith waste time trying to find a pattern where none existed. "They're slowing down," reported Officer Williams on the Defiance. "Their response time is increasing. They don't know how to react." Linda smiled. "Begin Phase 4. The fourth hour began. From the 7 human ships, a special signal was sent to the Zenith fleet. Kevin Young had designed it himself, a complex code that didn't shut down Zenith systems, but introduced small errors into their targeting calculations. The effect was immediate. Zenith weapons fire became increasingly inaccurate. Their ships began to miss coalition vessels by small margins. And because the Zenith systems still appeared to be working normally, their commanders had no idea anything was wrong. "They're hit. Rate is down by 60%, reported a coalition officer to Admiral Webb. "And falling." Webb looked at Jack. "Your people are remarkable." "We're just getting started," he replied. "Commander Hayes is about to launch the final phase." On the Defiance, Linda Hayes gave the order they had all been waiting for. "All hands prepare for direct assault. Target the Zenith flagship." The fifth hour began. The Defiance led a small strike team of human and coalition ships directly into the heart of the Zenith formation. This was the most dangerous part of the plan, relying on speed and surprise rather than firepower. "They're targeting us," warned Officer Williams as the Defiance raced toward the massive Zenith flagship. "Multiple weapons locks." "Evasive maneuvers," Linda ordered calmly. "Just like we practiced." The human ships moved in ways no coalition vessel ever had, spinning and twisting through space, making them nearly impossible to hit. The Zenith weapons, already compromised by Kevin's code, couldn't track them. As they closed in on the Zenith flagship, Engineer Doug Harrison prepared the special weapons they had designed for this moment. Modified nuclear devices that would emit radiation harmless to organic life but devastating to the crystalline technology that powered Zenith ships. "Weapons ready," Doug reported from the engineering section. "Fire," ordered Linda. The weapons launched from all 7 human ships, streaking toward the Zenith vessels. When they detonated, there was no massive explosion, just a pulse of energy that rippled through space. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the lights on the Zenith ships began to dim. Their engines sputtered and failed. Their weapons went silent. The mighty Zenith flagship, undefeated for 23 years, began to drift helplessly in space. "It worked," whispered Greg Williams, hardly believing what he was seeing. "It actually worked." Linda allowed herself a small smile. "Send the message to Admiral Webb. Phase 5 complete." In the Coalition Command Center, Webb received the news with stunned silence. Around her, coalition officers who had known nothing but defeat for decades watched as the Zenith fleet went dark before their eyes. "They're sending a signal," reported a communications officer. It's a surrender code." Jack Stewart checked his watch. 4 hours and 58 minutes since we fired the first shot. Webb looked at him in amazement. 23 years of war ended in 5 hours. Across the combined fleet, cheers erupted as the news spread. The Zenith Armada, the terror of the galaxy for over 2 decades, had been defeated in less than 5 hours after humans joined the fight. On the Defiance, Linda Hayes gave one final order. "All ships stand down weapons except the Zenith surrender." As the 5-hour mark arrived, the first official peace message in 23 years was transmitted from the Zenith Command. Their surrender was complete and unconditional. The human ships, small and primitive by galactic standards, had changed everything. Not with superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but with something the Zenith could never have predicted: the unpredictable nature of human warfare. The 5-hour war was over. 1 week after what the galactic community now called the 5-hour miracle, the massive central hall of Coalition headquarters was filled with beings from 100 different worlds. The curved walls gleamed with soft light, and the high ceiling was painted with stars representing Coalition planets. At the front of the hall, a raised platform held the Coalition leadership and honored guests. Admiral Nancy Webb stood before the gathered crowd, her silver uniform now adorned with new medals. The tired lines on her face had softened somewhat, though the memory of 23 years of war would not fade quickly. "We've fought for 23 years, she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "We lost billions of lives, thousands of worlds. Yet our new allies achieved in 5 hours what we couldn't in 2 decades. She gestured to the human officers standing nearby. Fleet Commander Linda Hayes, Jack Stewart, Dr. Olivia Reyes, and the others who had helped create and execute Operation Trojan Horse. They stood tall in their Earth uniforms, still adjusting to being sudden heroes in a galaxy they had only just discovered. "Today we honor these humans, and through them, the planet Earth," continued Webb. "They have earned the highest gratitude the Coalition can offer." One by one, the human officers stepped forward to receive medals made from a rare metal that shimmered with colors no human eye had ever seen before. The gathered aliens applauded in various ways, some clapping like humans, others making different sounds or gestures according to their customs. After the ceremony, a celebration spread throughout the station. Coalition members who had lived their entire lives under the shadow of war now faced a future of peace. Many sought out the humans, curious about the species that had changed everything. In a quieter corner of the station, Admiral Webb and Dr. Olivia Reyes shared a drink. The small human scientist looked out of place among the alien technology, but her keen eyes took in everything with interest. "Your people fight differently than anyone we've encountered," Webb admitted, sipping a glowing blue liquid. "How did you develop such unconventional thinking?" Olivia considered her answer. "Throughout our history, we've always been outnumbered, outgunned, or faced with impossible odds. We learned that victory doesn't always go to the strongest or most advanced. Sometimes it goes to those willing to try the unthinkable, like sending false signals to confuse enemy communications." "Exactly," said Olivia. "We call it electronic warfare. It's been part of human conflict for over a century." Webb shook her head in wonder. The Zenith never expected it. Their systems were designed to resist direct attacks, not deception. Across the room, Linda Hayes was speaking with a group of young Coalition officers. They listened with fascination as she described Earth's military history. "So your people have fought against yourselves?" asked one alien with 4 arms and skin like polished copper. "Many times," Linda admitted. "Our world has seen countless wars between nations." "How terrible," said another officer. "Yes," agreed Linda. "But it forced us to innovate, to find new ways to fight. Each conflict taught us something." The alien officers exchanged glances. Their species had been united for thousands of years before joining the Coalition. The idea of fighting their own kind seemed strange and sad. Will Earth join the coalition now? Asked the first officer. Linda smiled. Those discussions are just beginning. But I think so, yes. In another part of the station, Jack Stewart met with the Coalition Council. The 12 alien leaders represented the founding worlds of the Alliance. They sat around a circular table, with Jack given a place of honor. The Zenith surrender is complete, said Council Leader Dren, his reptilian scales gleaming in the soft light. Their fleet has been disabled and their leadership taken into custody. What happens to them now? Asked Jack. They will be contained, said another council member, a tall being with pale, almost transparent skin. Their worlds placed under coalition protection until they can be trusted again. Jack nodded. Though the Zenith had caused immense suffering, the coalition did not believe in revenge. Another difference between human and alien thinking that would need to be bridged in the coming years. And Earth? Asked Jack. What is our place in this new galaxy? Dren leaned forward. We would be honored to have Earth join the coalition. Your people have proven their value in ways we never imagined possible. There's much we can learn from each other, Jack said. We have different technologies, different ways of thinking. Together, we could build something greater than either of us could alone. As the meeting ended, Jack found himself walking with Commander Peter Garcia through the station's garden area. Plants from dozens of worlds created a peaceful space of strange colors and shapes. Hard to believe it's been only 2 weeks since we learned aliens existed, said Garcia, touching a blue leaf that curled around his finger. And now we're heroes of the galaxy, Jack replied with a small smile. Not bad for a species that hasn't even colonized our own solar system yet, Garcia laughed. That's next on the list, I suppose. As they walked, they passed aliens of all shapes and sizes. Many nodded respectfully or made gestures of greeting. News of the human victory had spread quickly throughout coalition space. Did you see the educational programs they're creating? Asked Garcia. They're already teaching human warfare tactics in their military academies. Jack shook his head, in wonder. I heard. They're calling it asymmetric thinking and unpredictable response strategies. Sounds fancier than making it up as we go along. On the last day before the human delegation would return to Earth, Admiral Webb held a private dinner for the officers who had led the final battle. The room was small but elegant, with a view of the stars through a large window. The Zenith surrender document has been officially filed in the Coalition archives, Webb told them. It notes the time of capitulation as exactly 5 hours after the first human ship fired its weapons. Linda Hayes raised her glass. To 5 hours that changed the galaxy. Everyone drank to the toast. Then Dr. Reyes asked the question they had all been wondering. What happens now? To Earth, to humans? Admiral Webb looked around at the humans who had become her friends. Everything changes. Your world will join the galactic community. Your people will travel to the stars. And the coalition will never be the same. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the endless stars. In military academies across coalition space, a new saying has emerged. Conventional warfare died. The day humanity joined the fight. Jack Stewart joined her at the window. I hope we bring more than just new ways to fight. You already have, said Webb softly. You've brought hope to a galaxy that had almost forgotten what it felt like. As the human ships prepared to return to Earth the next day, carrying news that would forever change human history, one thing was clear to everyone. The galaxy would never be the same again. The 5 hours that ended a 23-year war were just the beginning of humanity's journey among the stars.